facing the incomparable Mariano Rivera, who had saved 23 straight postseason games. 23 straight. And Luis was the hitter. And your thoughts going through your mind. I've never talked to you about this since then. And Luis and I, as a matter of fact, we worked the 2006 playoff game against the Mets playoff series, Mets and St. Louis.
Yeah,
and we didn't talk about it then.
I think I was more nervous working the game with you and Buck than I was. No, it was, I mean, you, as a young kid, you dream about those situations and you play them over as an athlete in your mind, and even as a sports fan in your mind millions of times. You know, I want to be in that spot. I want to be in the end. And good players and good athletes want to be the guy when the game is on the line.
The opportunity.
They want that shot at it. The ones that don't are the ones that don't succeed. You want to be that person that's, your team is counting on you. Whether you make the shot or get the hit or not, or throw the touchdown pass, that's the opportunity that you live for. And you're willing to live with that failure if you don't get it. But you want that opportunity. And for us three to be, what, it's been happened 5 times in the history? Is it 5, right? 4, Mazeroski, you know.
Mazeroski, Billy Martin actually had a game-winning hit in 1953. Billy played. Big influence on Ricky Henderson. Ricky comes up, and it seems like every other line during this, but Luis, particularly that year, and to kind of set the scene, I don't think, 2001, the Diamondbacks win the first 2 games in Phoenix, and then the Yankees go home with the scenery set from 9/11. What happened? And the World Series moved back to a possible November game. And Derek Jeter, the famous sign, Mr. November, when he had a home run to win the World Series. But in my view, the best back-to-back games I've ever seen in the sport were games 4 and 5.
For you, not for us.
Well, no. I mean,
I think Reggie was in right field when that ball went over his head.
I'll never forget the look on Bob Brenly's face when Kim gave up the second home run to Scott Brocious in Game 5. If you may or may not remember that, being a fan of the sport, you'd remember it. But there were games 4 and 5. The Diamondbacks were ahead in both games. There was 1 on and 2 out. And Hyun Kim came in to both situations, and he threw initially a fastball to Tino Martinez. Tino hit a 2-run home run to tie it. Jeter went it. I think that game, Jeter won it in the 10th. And then the same situation with a different hitter the next night. Game 5, the Yankees down by 2, and Scott Brocious hits a 2-run home run with 2 outs. And that set the scene for the Diamondbacks to go back to Phoenix and blew out the Yankees in Game 6, and then in Game 7, everything happened. And a lot of people don't even talk about the starting pitching with Roger Clemens and Curt Schilling going at one another. And Randy Johnson, who had pitched the night before, gets the win in Game 7.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that World Series as it played into Game 7, if you look at numbers, we dominated that World Series offensively. But when you look at team concept, we were the oldest team in baseball at the time, but the Yankees had won 4 in a row.
3 in a row.
And they had a team that knew how to win. I mean, good teams find ways, even when you're not at your best, when you get that opportunity, if they crack that door, they're going to kick it in. And we knew that every game we played those guys. You get in the locker room after, don't let up on these guys. They've been there before. They know what they're doing. But what we had was on our ball club, we had a group of cast-offs. You look at our team, everybody on our team was average 3 or 4 different ball clubs that they had played for. And like I said, we were the oldest team in baseball at the time. But when you walked in the door, out of all the accomplishments that all these guys had, the bike chain was all pointing in the same direction. We didn't care if you were Joe Schmo that was a 4-time MVP or Cy Young Award winner like Randy was, or Kurt Schilling. Just help us win that game that night. The next night we'll count on somebody else. We just needed one guy to drive the bus and everybody else get on and get us going in the right direction. And that's why that World Series played so well, because you had 2 teams that knew how to play the game. We didn't try to, we weren't going up there. You look at Toronto, what a great team they had this year. We were just talking about that, Joe, in the back. They had a great team. Everybody expected these guys to get there, but when you got everybody on your team trying to hit a 3-run homer, that doesn't play well. That's why a team like Kansas City won, because they did all the little things right. And when you have teams like that everybody does their job, you end up winning championships. And I think that was important for our ball club.
Luis, in the glowing aura of sports in this country as we know it, the dramatic things that can happen with Bobby's Indiana team, or Ricky Henderson again with Oakland, and in baseball, the World Championship and the drama behind Kim giving up those 2 home runs. What was his demeanor? I've never asked this question from anybody, don't know. What was his demeanor after Game 7?
After Game 7, it was great. Games 3, 4, and 5, you're a little worried about on the airplane. I mean, your teammates are your family. They're an extension of your family. And when you play with all these guys, you spend so much time with them, just as much time as you do with your family at home. We had a lot of guys were really worried about him on the plane. Here's a guy that doesn't speak a lot of English. He's a Korean kid. When we're in Yankee Stadium, and Reggie played on the team too, who's sitting out here. Yankee fans have a tendency of not being very nice to guys. And we're sitting there in Games 6 and 7, they're chanting his name to bring him in. And we're going, man, I wonder if he knows that that's not a good thing. But, most people are excited when you hear your name being chanted, especially when you come into a ballpark and, they're booing you, because that's a sign of respect for an athlete. When you're booed at another stadium, you know that you've done something that makes everybody take notice of you. But, after those 3 games, we're on the airplane, a lot of guys went up to him and said, hey, you're the guy, we're counting on you. Because you don't want to give up on a guy. He's the one who helped us get there.
Sure.
And, out of all those times that you fail, baseball is one of the, I'm sure Coach Knight out here, you have a guy that misses 7 out of 10 free throws, he's going to have him sitting right next to him. Probably not next to him, maybe on the end of the bench. But in baseball, you have to pick your moments when you get those 3 hits to be a 300 hitter. And, for a guy like that to fail, we just wanted him to know, hey, we're counting on you because we may need you in 6 or 7. Obviously when you got a guy like Randy who wants to take the ball in 7, we'd much rather have that option. But, we were worried about him a lot. And after Game 7, I think you saw a huge sigh of relief on him knowing that, we won the World Series and it was behind him.
And never in the history of the World Series has a hit by the pitcher, when Craig Counsell was hit by Rivera on a cutter inside before you had the game-winning hit. Never has a hit by a pitcher meant so much and set the stage for you. It's funny how fate works.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually on deck wondering where I was going to go to jump in the pile to be on the cover of the Wheaties box. And he ends up getting a hit because he had a great championship series. He was the MVP, and I'm on deck, and I'm looking. I'm enjoying the moment. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm looking around, and then he gets hit, and I went, "Oh shoot!" Now it's my turn.
But Tony Womack had doubled the tie.
Probably the biggest hit of the World Series.
I agree with that.
And now I'm walking to the plate, and so many things go through your mind as a player. First of all, you're thinking, oh my God, I played this scenario out But here I am, I'm 33 years old. I played this out when I was 12 to 25, 26. And then...
and you may not have another opportunity.
No, that's
the same for all of you.
Absolutely.
Here. I mean, this
is your one shot.
One shot.
Your one shot, and then the second thought through my mind is don't screw this up. You got a lot of people counting on you. You're at home. I ended up that year, I had 57 home runs, drove in 140 something runs, and a great team. And you don't get those accomplishments without good surroundings, with guys around you that help you out. And I knew the best pitcher in the game. One pitch.
Best pitcher in the history
of the game. One pitch. That's all I had to look for. I didn't have to look for a curveball or sinker down in the way. I knew he was going to throw the cutter. And then when Joe Torre went out there and brought the infield in, because in the 8th inning we rallied around. I struck out in the 8th inning.
Struck out the side. Rivera struck out the side in the 8th inning.
And I wasn't a high strikeout guy. I was a contact guy, and he blew me away in the 8th. And then that little guy creeps into your mind going, oh God, that was a tough at bat. And I didn't have many at bats against him in my career. I was only in the American League 1 year. But when they brought the infield in, you put everything aside and you figure out a way. I got to get this done somehow, some way. I wasn't worried about trying to hit a ball out of the ballpark, trying to hit a ball in the gap. I was just saying, just get something in the outfield, because once that infield came in, I don't know if Joe Torre's in here, but I think
he's here, I'm sure.
I think with the cutter being a left-handed hitter, if he threw something in and I hit a weak ground ball, then I would be able to beat the throw out, and the run would
you gotta have the infield.
Yeah, that was the right play.
There's no question about that.
That was the right play to do at the time, but I was fortunate enough to just get enough of it over Jeter's head. Now 14 years later, young kids, I tell them that it was a line drive. I
mean, again, as fate would have it, you had 57 home runs, and yet the World Series hit was a broken bat base hit over Jeter's head.
The biggest hit of my life.
Yeah. Fabulous. What's your legacy, Joe? You think in Canada? In